Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida Extension here in Hernando County, and with me today are my regular co-hosts, Colby Pitts, who is the Hernando County Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator, who is busy on the phone at the moment. So, since we are all busy people, he'll be just a moment, but he'll be back on. So, if you have any questions for Colby, he will be here today. And like pretty much every other Thursday, if it's not a Thanksgiving or Christmas or something like that, we have Bernie, one of our Master Gardener volunteers. Good morning, Bernie. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Bill.
And there's Colby. Good morning, Colby. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
About the same. Even though sometimes things get a little bit quieter around the holidays with us, it never really gets very quiet. So as soon as I think my schedule's starting to clear out a little bit, other things come in, and that one little thing on my schedule that takes 7 hours or 5 hours in a Zoom meeting chews up the entire day. So, hey guys, we are all here for you. So, if any of you have a question or comment, question on any kind of lawn and garden topics, vegetable gardens, fruit trees, water, septic tanks, sewers, we do our best to cover it all. And hopefully, in the background watching today is Teresa, who is there to help support us and share links with University of Florida information. So I froze my tail off this past week, I think.
Oh man, I've lived in Florida my entire life, so getting like waking up in the morning and there's ice on my car,
Yeah.
that's too much. I'm over it. I almost want to go into hibernation. Uh, for the time, it's like cold enough in the morning. It's like even if you wanted to go do something, like you couldn't. I couldn't anyway. I'm not built for that. This morning it warmed up a little bit though. No ice.
Oh yeah, yeah, no ice this morning. We
It was
were in my neighborhood, low 40s.
it
I
was
know
43 when I left the house.
over the past week, it's funny because where I live, I think I stayed maybe 1 or 2 degrees above freezing every day. Some of my plants got some damage, so I have tomatoes in the backyard. They got a little bit damage on the tops of the plants. Had a couple eggplants, and they're pretty much shot, but they were headed that way anyway. I have a banana, and it stayed just barely warm enough where it did not damage it because I have a bunch of bananas on it. My next door neighbor has a banana plant on the corner of her house. It was just a little bit too close to the front yard, the street, everything else, and a couple of its leaves got zapped. So once again, borderline, had it been 1 or 2 degrees colder, I would not be happy in my backyard.
That's really kind of sad because this is sort of a mixed blessing. Uh, on one hand, if we get a nice freeze, uh, a really good frost, it takes out all the annuals that are growing in the yard. All the weeds get zapped,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives you an opportunity to start real early in the spring, do a little weed control, a little pre-emergent, and really helps next year and how many weeds you'll have in your front yard. But uh, those people that are growing semi-tropicals that are right on the border here, unfortunately, they're going to lose some plants that they didn't really want to. So, uh,
Yeah.
it never hurts to put things in a pot if you can, uh, and put them inside. Right now, I have a garage full of things, and we got quite a bit of frost. The thing that happens is if you have a clear sky and no wind, the heat off of everything radiates directly out into space without actually warming the air. So the problem you run into is that uh, right at the soil surface, the temperature could be 28 degrees, and yet the air temperature could still be in the 30s or even as much as 40 degrees. So you go out and it's only 40 degrees, but there's ice on the windshield of your car. How does that happen? Well, the heat radiates just like a radio wave or something, and it really doesn't heat the air. The air is not a real good conductor of heat, but that clear sky, everything wants it to go out in space. But so it makes all your little heat waves astronauts, I guess.
Yeah, I always know when I walk outside, late at night, wondering what's going on. Totally still, totally clear, and getting colder and colder. It's like, uh-oh, that's kind of the worst case scenario. And it's funny, if there's enough moisture in the air, then it can be mid 30s and you have frost on the roof of your car and on the windshield. Your vehicle is covered with ice. Some grass will have frost on it, other grass in protected areas, because I have most of my things growing in the backyard. And apparently it's somewhat protected, thank goodness. A little bit more protected than if I have bananas and tropicals right out in the middle of the front yard. So it really is just that 1 degree one way or the other. Spring Hill never quite got to 32. Brooksville, on the other hand, there were several mornings where it got down to 30. So they definitely have frost and freeze and damage there. So it just gets dicey.
If these things don't see a clear sky, they don't get as cold. So that's why just putting things under a tree offers some reasonable protection until the actual air temperature gets below freezing. If it's sitting under a tree, it doesn't see the clear sky, doesn't lose the heat to radiation so fast, doesn't
Yeah,
freeze
because the
up.
tree helps to hold it in, and you can actually see if you have a big tree in your front yard, you might have frost on the grass, except for a big circle right underneath the tree where it didn't get quite as cold.
It's kind of the opposite of if you've got a radiant heater, the heater's hot and you get hot, but the air between you and the heater doesn't warm up. Well, these plants looking at a clear, cold sky, it's the same effect in reverse, but it has to do with the fact that the heat travels through the air, or the cold travels through the air, however you want to look at it, without actually changing the temperature of the air that much. So, they teach that in high school, and of course, people that have been out of high school for as long as we have. Colby, I'm sure, knows all this stuff, but I have to read books every once in a while just to refresh. Do you remember books, Colby?
I read a few books in my time, just a couple. I actually have been getting, I've seen a lot of talk about people's yards getting brown and what they're supposed to do about their yard being brown this time of year. And I feel like I know we talk about it. I know we talked about it last year. I'm sure we'll talk about it next year and every other year after. So why does this happen? What can we do about it?
Well, that's an easy one. Nothing. That doesn't get simpler. Do not fertilize. Do not mow. Do not worry. Wait until next. I mean, this is the plan. This is what these things are destined to do. And especially if you have Bahia, but Bahia turns brown and it sits there and waits for conditions to improve. And as soon as things are better, it turns green and it's happy again. So, if you had St. Augustine lawn, it turns brown. It's not quite as happy, but there's really nothing you can do, and there's nothing you should do. This is a time when you let it rest and don't worry about it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, some people who are snowbirds who are only here during the winter will come back for the winter. They look at the lawn. It's like, oh my gosh, it's brown. The husband is told to go to the store and get fertilizer and water it and make that lawn green again so it looks good. It's not supposed to. It's not supposed to be green and beautiful and growing during the winter because we have nothing but warm season turf grasses here. So they do great in the warm season, but during the winter they're supposed to go dormant. We don't have northern types of lawns here, things like different fescues, Kentucky bluegrass, centipede grass. We're here in Hernando County, we're a little bit too far south for centipede grass. Now, Buddy, up there in the Panhandle, probably has a centipede grass lawn, and centipede grass is great because it grows very, very slow, and you don't have to cut it very often, even during the summer when it's growing and doing well. It gets a few insect problems. It gets a weird scale issue that you have to treat for. But we really don't have any people who have full lawns of centipede here in Hernando County in Central Florida because it just gets too hot during the summer. It's not the right lawn for the right place here.
Can you cut the mic gain, Colby?
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Oh, better.
So
yeah, we've got a couple people that have centipede lawns. There's a little area just north of downtown Brooksville that centipede works for some reason, and it's kind of a shame because it's like everything else. There's no absolute hard fast rule on anything. If you tell people it's not going to work, there's somebody that it's working for wonderfully, and unfortunately that's if I tell 90 people that they can't have a particular plant, 89 of them that's true, but there'll be one that will have something, and that exception is really difficult to explain at times because we've got several places in the area where that's not a problem. I mean, here is a tree that's beautiful and it shouldn't have been there, and there was a cassia tree not very far from here that got to be probably 40 feet tall, and it would be yellow and it would be beautiful, and it just shouldn't have been here. And about 4 years ago, we had a freeze, and it isn't here anymore. But for a long time, it was a problem because I would tell people, this is not really a great plant because freezes take it out. And here's one that's 40 feet. Well, when you lose it, that's really sad. That's
yeah.
And
there's a lot of things that really 1 in 100 people can be successful at here. So we really can't say that certain different plants and trees and fruits will not grow here. It's just the chances of you doing it successfully are very, very slim. So you should know that going into it. Things like apples, lavender. And every time I see that on Facebook, somebody says, how do I grow lavender in Central Florida? And a bunch of people go on there and say, don't bother, don't try. None of it does well here. Somebody's going to jump in there with, oh, well, this variety does great in my yard. I'm thinking,
yeah,
you don't want to set people up for failure. Some advanced gardeners really like to try growing things that are really difficult to grow that they really want to, and it's a challenge. And if they're successful, that's fantastic. You get a really great sense of pride and accomplishment because of that. But don't move to Florida and start with putting in an apple tree and lavender and hydrangeas that are not rated for Central Florida. They're rated more for Georgia and South Carolina and other things. You're probably going to just end up with a lot of dead plant material in your yard. You're going to get frustrated and you're going to give up. So start with things that give you a 98% chance of success. And then as time goes on, you could try the tougher and tougher ones. Bassem, good morning. How are you? And it looks like Buddy does have centipede grass up there in the Panhandle, and it does get fungal problems. So there is no turf grass that is totally problem-free. They all have some kind of problem. Thank you, Alessandra. That's another one. Peonies. Peonies don't do well in Central Florida, guys. I'm so very sorry. And somebody will probably jump in the comments and say, but I grew them. You can plant them and kind of grow them during the winter here. But peonies, tulips, a lot of the really attractive, popular northern bulbs that come up in the spring don't do well here.
So while you guys were just having your discussion, I wanted to kind of illustrate how your Bahia is going to brown out. So if I could present real quick, I wanted to show some Google Earth images. So this is a place that I know is Bahia grass, almost all of it, especially this right here. And if you look, this is in July, and that's November, the previous November. So this is a very cyclical thing. It happens every year. So especially if you're new to the area, it's gonna get brown. That just happens. And I mean, I'm sure if I looked around, I could find somewhere that was a little bit more dramatic. But this is right in the summer. We got rains. It's nice, and then boom, you're in November and it's brown. It's just something that happens, and it's going to continue to happen as long as it gets.
You can't change it. Not with a bag of fertilizer. Not with watering every day. And obviously, you do not want to water your lawn every day here in Hernando County because we are under permanent at the moment once a week irrigation. So you can only water once a week. And somebody found a great blog post here. People who are moving here from New York about transplanting irises, daylilies. Daylilies do grow very well here. There's probably some varieties that do a bit better up north, a bit better in Florida. But daylilies will grow here. Peonies, astrolebes, no, please don't. Or if you do, and you actually find a way of making it work, because you can take steps to change the conditions that they're growing in. People put up greenhouses in their backyard, hobbyist greenhouses. You can grow melons and tomatoes and all these warm season vegetables in the dead of winter because you have a greenhouse. If it's heated, or you have a way of not letting it get too cold when it gets cold outside, that works. You can grow things indoors. You can grow things in a screened-in back porch if there's a way of closing everything up when it gets really, really cold out to keep your plants from getting too cold. So you can kind of do it, but we do not recommend planting New York peonies and astrolebes right out in a flower bed in the middle of your front yard here in Hernando County. Not going to work out well. So, Bernie, what are some other things that you've heard of people wanting to grow here that just not the best?
Well, the big problem now is that people are wanting to grow things that have got problems. The citrus. Everybody that moves to Florida wants citrus, so that's great. But there's a bug flying around trying to destroy your citrus. And the odds are at this point, you're not going to get 5 years out of the plant. Well, for the most part, about the time the plant's really starting to be productive, it's diseased and it's not productive anymore. So
yeah,
citrus isn't good. I had a cabbage palm that I planted. It's kind of funny because at this point, I don't plant a lot of things because I have knee problems. I just can't get up and down. I'm really not an active gardener as such. But I have a cabbage palm and it's beautiful and I love it. And I got out of the car and I was looking at it and I said, that plant is gorgeous and it didn't get hurt by the hurricane. And I am so happy with that plant. It's someplace that, it's just a gorgeous palm. 2 weeks later, I get out of the car, look at the palm, and it's 100% dead. 2 weeks and it's gone. And
it can happen.
Yeah, well, that's the first time that I've really mourned a plant. And I understand now why people get so upset about some of these plants. It really, really
Oh,
bothers me.
there we
And
go.
the truth, if you're going to spend a lot of money on anything, you need to know that it's going to stay. And the truth is, uh, the Phoenix series of palms, the cabbage palms, uh, they're probably not going to survive. They're getting a disease, and until we have a cure for the disease, they're a really bad investment. So uh, the big problem I have isn't with planting things that don't grow here. It's planting things that will grow here, but not right now.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's a problem worldwide. You know, there are places where bananas have been the big commercial crop, and there's a fungal problem, and you can no longer plant bananas in the entire country. Well, you know, if that's what happens to a plant, you have to change. You have to understand that uh, these are no longer viable things. And right now, pretty much citrus is no longer a viable product in Florida, and uh, some of these new expensive palms are no longer a viable product. You can still buy them. The stores sell them. People want them, and I don't really fault the stores. You know, if I was in business and I told people, you know, you really shouldn't plant that. The thing that would happen is they would go next door to the store that sells it and go ahead and sell it. So
yeah.
uh, I think that probably they owe you an explanation as you're walking out. Be careful with that plant; it's probably not going to survive, but they're not going to do that. But anyway,
No, 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 no. You need to do your due diligence to find out, is this the right plant for
exactly.
my yard? And even with citrus, they do have a variety, sugar bell, that you can get that is greening resistant and does very well. And they have other varieties coming out also. They're not as easily obtainable yet. But as time goes on, there will be more and more citrus varieties out there that are not going to have a problem with this disease. So it's safe to grow them. You're probably going to be successful with them. And hopefully the same with palm trees. I lost a very large Sylvester palm in the front yard, and it got bronzing, and I knew it. And every day I'd look up at it, it would get worse, worse, and worse, and worse. All the leaves died. During a storm, the top, what should have been the growing point, but it was dead at this point, the top blew off and landed on the ground. And I didn't get around to getting it cut down literally for months. Oh, I said, "Are you going to get that palm tree cut down?" Yeah, when I get a chance, I'll call the tree service and have them come out. They finally did, but it took a while. So I'm sure my neighbors were thinking, "Isn't he going to get that dead palm tree cut down? What's going on over there?" And it was very large also, and they are not cheap to get cut down and removed if they're large. If they're still a small one, it's a lot
Palm
cheaper.
trees are unusually heavy. They're a surprise when you cut them down.
Yeah, thunk. The whole neighborhood shakes when it hits the ground. And Alessandra asks about the sugar bell, mandarin oranges. I believe it's a mandarin. When will my sugar bell start to produce? I thought it was, she got it in one of our first classes to be about a year ago. So it's probably been in the ground for a year.
3 years.
2 years. So it takes about 2 years. Yeah, if it's in the ground and you're taking good care of it, you want to get a quality citrus fertilizer. Fertilize it very lightly, several times from about March through October at the latest. No point fertilizing it during the winter. It's not really going to grow much right now. It doesn't need the fertilizer. Water it when it gets really dry. If we're getting plenty of rain during the summer, you don't have to water it. That's fine. During a normal rainy summer, watch for all the normal fungal diseases. You're going to have to use a fungicide probably. Keep your eye out for all the different scales, white flies, black flies, aphids, spider mites, and everything else that is going to be a pest during the summer, make sure you deal with them. And what do you think? Maybe another year or two?
I would think that from the size of those trees that I wouldn't push for any real production for the first 3 years.
Yeah.
So I would think 2 more years. I would keep them from producing if you don't mind doing that. Um, the it should have several really big growth spurts. Uh,
Hmm.
they grow in flushes. They produce, then they harden up a little bit, and then they produce, and then they harden up a little bit. Uh, the earlier it starts producing, the less growing it does. So you're better off if you don't really let it produce. You know, pick off the fruits that start forming, and they'll probably start forming uh, maybe yet in this year, or definitely next year. But that's really early. In a grove situation, uh, a tree is not really a great producer for 5 to 7 years. So
Yeah, the nice thing about sugar bell is once it gets a little bit older, it's very cold tolerant. They grow them all the way up in the panhandle commercially. So, now if it's a little young tree, you're going to have to cover it when it gets down to close to 32 or below. But once it gets older and larger, in Central Florida here, you're really never going to have to worry too much about cold damage. It's not very, very cold sensitive. And I see Teresa is sharing University of Florida. Oh my gosh, has probably 100 years worth of information, research, everything else on all the different soft-bodied citrus insect pests, um, citrus problems in the home landscape.
that's
They
a
have
good
an
one.
army of researchers and breeders looking for varieties that don't get greening. And how do we control the insect? How do we control the disease? They do a lot of work on citrus. So that's a good, you're not going to find a lot of University of Florida information on lavender or apples, probably a little bit on apples. And they grow apples in the panhandle of Florida, here in Central Florida. It's just not worth it. But citrus, we got a lot of information. I need to get a sugar bell tree and stick it in my backyard. I got a finger lime that's doing very well. Cold doesn't bother it. It's gotten a couple little flushes of new growth. It hasn't got. It's been so dry, really since Hurricane Milton in this area. It hasn't rained at all.
The real nice fruit, if you really want to grow fruit here,
Hmm.
peaches do fantastic. But the peaches are kind of a odd thing in that they want a certain amount of cold before they produce, and the trees have a specific number of hours, and then they flower. So if you have one that is a very early producing tree, and you get a frost after it's flowered, you lose your fruit.
Yeah,
So
no fruit that year.
the trick, if you want good peaches, is to have different temperature or different chill hour ratings on, have 100 hour, have a 200, and have a 350 hour tree. One of the three will produce every year. If you thin the fruits out, take about half of the little tiny fruits off while they're thumbnail size or smaller, uh, the remaining fruits will double in size. We produce really good fruit here, but it's one of those things that you need to prune the tree properly. They have to have an open center, and you have to prune the fruit. Otherwise, you end up with really tiny little peaches. They're still good, but they're very small. And you have to have the right chill hours. And the best way to have the right chill hours is have 2 or 3 trees.
Hedge your bets. Yeah, and with peaches, plums, and nectarines, you want to read up on some University of Florida information. You have to keep your eyes open for diseases and have a proper fungicide handy, and also insect pests, especially when you get fruit and the fruit starts to size up. If you turn your back and you're not observant, there are certain insect pests that will come along and basically ruin your fruit. So you have to keep your eyes open, go out there and scout those trees, keep an eye on what's going on with them. But they can do very, very well here. There's a number of, I really don't know if we have any right here in Hernando County. I know up closer towards Gainesville, they have you pick peaches. I've never had a chance to go to one of them. They have a big you pick pomegranate operation south of Gainesville. And Bassem asks, can we grow finger lime in Central Florida without worrying about the diseases? Generally, yes. Well, obviously, the main disease of citrus greening, finger limes do not get. So you don't have to worry about that one. Now, there's other diseases out there in the world because goodness knows citrus gets a lot of different fungal diseases. Finger limes, I think, are generally pretty disease resistant. I don't know of big issues with it. You may have to treat with a fungicide during the year, but probably not. Just keep your mind. Mine so far looks perfect. It's not terribly big yet. Hopefully it will flush out and grow a lot this spring. I need to put a little bit of time and effort into it, fertilize it, make sure I water it until it starts to rain again. But no, finger limes are not a huge disease magnet as a general rule. And I see Teresa's putting all kinds of links up here. Sugar apples. Sugar apples are a tropical fruit. So if you live in South Florida, you're familiar with them. You've seen them at roadside stands or farmers markets. Have either of you guys tried a sugar apple? I never have. It's funny looking fruit. I'm thinking about how to describe it. Give me a second. Let's go ahead and look up sugar apple here. And here we go.
One of the problems with growing the things like peaches and apples here, although there are varieties that do well, they don't live as long as they do up north. I assume it's because of the high temperature and the longer growing period. They've consumed their life expectancy in a shorter period of time. So that is strange looking.
Yeah. And sugar apples cover is probably the better part of 10 different species of fruit trees. And because I attended a class on these before, let me scrape my memory banks here. There's a bunch of different species and varieties, and it includes cherimoyas, soursops, custard apple, pond apple. I was about to say there's one that grows in wet, swampy areas, and atamoya. And then they cross them, so like atamoya and cherimoya, and you get crosses and different varieties. Some of them will grow up here in Central Florida. Some of them take cold weather fairly well. Other varieties do not take cold weather at all. You're going to find them growing in Miami like weeds because it never gets very cold down there. They're not going to do well here. So we're going to have to find some sugar apples. Where the heck do we get sugar apples from? We'll have to do a taste test on here one day. Grown mostly in the tropics. Production, and they do have limited commercial production in Florida. Not a lot, but a little bit. It's restricted to warm locations along the lower southeast to southwest coasts. You can grow it along Lake Okeechobee in warm, protected locations along the lower east and west coast. Not so much here in Hernando County. And very, very good for home landscaping to have 1 or 2 or 10, however many you want. Yeah, there are varieties that you could get and grow here in Hernando County. I just don't know exactly which ones are going to do the best here. Yeah, unprotected young trees are severely damaged or killed at 30 to 32 degrees. Yeah, we have to figure out and get some sugar apples, and we'll have to do a little taste testing, where I'll have to have Teresa help with that. Might have to go down to Miami, down to the huge farmers market down there in Homestead, one of my favorite places to visit, because you'll just come out with shopping bags of tropical fruits and vegetables and stuff that you've never seen or heard of before to give it a try. So guys, if anybody has any questions or comments, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll do our very best to answer your questions. And if we don't have an answer, we have Teresa in the background, and she will find a link. She'll find the information somewhere, somehow. Alessandra, I guess, has tried them. She says very delicious, super sweet. Here, I'll put them on my list of things to look into for here.
Maybe we can start a new country fad to get the whole U.S. to go for them. Make a new farm product for Florida.
There are growers, specialty growers in Florida, especially in South Florida, that grow all kinds of different tropical fruits. And in this day and age, they sell a lot of them mail order. If you want to go online and order beautiful, perfectly ripe Florida mangoes, you can order them and they'll ship them to you, and they'll be here in a day or two. I've read before that in Japan, what's considered a very, very thoughtful gift is the perfect mango. It's not just any old mango. It's not a bruised mango. It's not a kind of half green mango you got to put on the counter. No. If you find and give somebody the perfect mango, it's considered a very, very thoughtful gift. So I guess hopefully Teresa's Googling right now about ordering sugar apples online. We'll have to have a fruit box delivered here. And of course, if you are ever curious about trying any of these in your own yard, University of Florida has a ton of information. We've done classes on these, because there are some things that they're just not going to grow here unless you have a greenhouse or you're growing inside. Things like jackfruit, they're very, very tropical. Other things, a little bit closer where you can try them here. And if you get lucky and things work out well, you're going to actually get some, because you don't have to drive very far south of here. They grow mango. Apparently, they grow a lot of mangoes down in Tarpon Springs, and that's 45 minutes south of here, not very far away. Different varieties of dragon fruit you can grow here. You're going to have to give it some winter protection. Bananas, obviously, you can grow here. It really, really helps if you protect them. You'll actually get bananas instead of a damaged tree at the end of winter that just has to grow back. So there's a lot of things that you can try, but I would definitely recommend reading up on them first and getting an idea of, do I really want to try growing this? What are my chances of success? So you know what you're getting into before you get into it.
We seem to have, especially on our coastal area, a 7 to 10 year period between catastrophic freezes, where a lot of these things you might not be able to get by with them in the eastern part of the county, but the closer you were coastal, the easier it might be on some of them. You know, limes were a real good example. The western part of the county, there's several people with really big, really old lime trees, but in the eastern part of the county, they're almost non-existent. So,
Yeah, Brooksville used to be known 100 years or plus or minus ago for growing tangerines. They grew tons of tangerines here, and of course, you would grow them here. You would get them to either a rail line or a river. You ship them up to the Northeast, and everybody buys your tangerines, and you become rich until 20 years down the road, you have a devastating freeze. It kills all your trees. Now you're broke. So Florida used to be kind of feast or famine with citrus back then. But yeah, they used here in Hernando County, we really are for a lot of things kind of at the edge. Lemons and limes are going to be tough here. Bernie, any suggestions on what would be the best variety of persimmon for Central Florida?
no, and we had a company that started a persimmon grove, commercial persimmon grove. They had, I believe it was 6 varieties of persimmons, and none of them were successful. It ended up the entire grove ended up failing. It was one of those things that they were working with the university, and they were trying to come up with a variety that would really be satisfactory, and nothing really worked well. They had a lot of problems. So there isn't something that was a good commercial variety. There's some persimmons that just do well, but they aren't necessarily considered something that you could be using commercially. So we had a nursery here that had varieties that at least survived, and unfortunately, the gentleman grew older and passed on, and nobody kept up the nursery. So I don't really know what to recommend. I could probably find that out. I know people that were involved with it, and but what you would consider commercial varieties really don't do well here. We're just a little bit too far north.
Yeah, I had a persimmon tree over in Volusia County. I'm not positive what variety it is, but the one I know of that is non-astringent and is very tasty and generally does well in Central Florida would be one of the Japanese varieties. One of them is Fuyu, Fuyu, and you want to get non-astringent persimmons. If you get the astringent persimmons, they're extremely puckery if they're not really, really, really like almost mushy ripe. But the non-astringent ones, they could be ripe and they're still non-astringent. Mine did great. Mine flowered, it fruited. I actually got persimmons off of it. Never really had a problem. Growing them commercially, you probably want to work with the university or your extension office before you go out and just buy 100 trees and go ahead and put them in. It's not a guaranteed situation. A problem you can have with persimmons is we do have native wild persimmons here in Florida, and they're never really very good to eat. And the ones out in the woods, the persimmons are always eaten and enjoyed by all the wildlife and animals out there. But those wild trees can harbor diseases that now spread to your grove or your backyard, and that can always be an issue or a problem. Alessandra says that her persimmons are growing well, so you can grow them here. It's not like apples. We definitely don't recommend it. But persimmons can do well. Just don't go starting a grove without looking long and hard into it. I see Teresa has thrown up a whole bunch of links to different Japanese persimmon cultivars in Florida. and the common persimmon, which would be the one that you find out in the forest. And I've seen them out there before. But the thing is, by the end of summer, if you see a persimmon tree wild out in the woods, the leaves are black. It gets a major fungus out there in nature. And the wild ones, they go through it just fine because persimmons drop all their leaves in the winter. So persimmon, they coexist. If you get a good tasty variety, it may not coexist as well. That disease might kill your tree over a couple years. And Alessandro says, try freezing the persimmons after ripe. The cold temperatures will remove the astringency. Okay. And if you look at a lot of grocery stores have persimmons right now. It's a big holiday item. And we do have U-Picks in Central Florida. I'm not sure exactly where, but I have seen them online before. And going back up, didn't want to zoom past this question. John, up in the Villages, has a garden space he'd like to grow tomatoes in. The area gets sunlight at about 3 p.m. till sundown. Would that be okay to attempt to grow tomatoes on that side of your house?
I would think so.
Probably. If you look at your house and you look at the different directions, you don't want to plant. The north side of your house is really, really awkward. North side of your house right up against the wall is in the shade year round. And in the winter, it's just that much shadier and it stays cold all the time. South side of your house is generally good for growing most things. East side is great, gets the morning sun. West side of your house can be a furnace because a lot of times during the summer, if we're not raining in the afternoon, it's very sunny. The west side of your house gets really hot, really intense. You have to find just the right plant to put there because most things are going to burn up. So depending on what side of your house you're thinking about putting tomatoes in, that kind of helps you get an idea of if you want to pick that side or not. But yeah, tomatoes and other vegetables that get some type of fruit on them, tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, cucumbers, green beans, things like that, need pretty full sun. And they say generally 6 to 8 hours a day. So tomatoes, if it's a little too shady there, they'll grow a little bit slower, but they'll still grow. They'll still do okay. And I see Teresa put up a very, very good link here that everybody should go to or bookmark. FDACS, the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, has a website, Buy Fresh from Florida, U-Pick Farms. So this is all the different U-Pick farms around Florida, what they grow, how to contact them, hopefully tells you when they're open. And I think that's great fun going to U-Pick farms. There's one in not far from us. I guess maybe technically the edge of Dade City. It's in Pasco County. Kind of between Spring Hill and Dade City-ish area, and they have tangerines. And come to think of it, I should start seeing them in my Facebook feed. They're usually open around Christmas, New Year's. We went once before New Year's. Great fun. Bernie would have loved the citrus grove because they didn't do a whole lot of weed control. and the weeds were a little out of control. And some of the trees you could tell had greening and were declining, but a lot of them still look good. We were able to find a lot of really good looking tangerines. A lot of fun going out there and picking them yourselves. Great family fun thing to go out and do when the weather is nice, like it is a lot of times in January.
A lot of the citrus, even though it's got greening, it takes a while before the fruit declines. So if you keep the trees fertilized, they'll have definite signs of greening, and the tree's obviously in trouble. But the fruit may stay good for as long as 3 or 4 years afterwards. I don't recommend that people remove trees with greening anymore, I'd tell them leave the tree alone and fertilize it, and when the fruit's no longer any good, get rid of the tree. But
Yeah.
it's amazing how long. I had a navel tree that branches would die and it would really look bad, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I'd fertilize it, and then it would have one branch with good oranges. And then the next year, that branch would die, but maybe one other branch would produce. And it went for 6 years. So
Wow.
I, I'm amazed that it finally gave up the goats, but it did produce some viable fruit. And then I've had other trees that after they first start showing signs, the fruit gets misshapen and becomes bitter.
Yeah, and it really depends. With some trees, it goes faster. With other trees, it goes slower. You'll tell, when it's no longer producing, when it's no longer giving you edible fruit, probably time to think about getting rid of it. But if you really wanted to put another citrus tree in your yard, some of them are available now that don't get greening. So for anybody who ever wants to contact me, there is my email. And if anybody who wants to contact our office, we are here in Hernando County. Just give us a call. Teresa will answer the phone. And if it's Thursday, she can patch you through to Bernie, and you can ask him your lawn and garden question. Please be sure to follow us on Facebook. I spent this morning sitting down, going through planning out classes. I got things planned out pretty much for every week. Not every week, but almost every week through April. So we have a lot of different exciting activities, classes, things coming up. We put all of them on Facebook. Follow us on Facebook. Go to the events page if you want to see what we have coming up. You could always visit our Master Gardener Nursery. There is the address right here in Brooksville, right off of State Road 41, right behind the Hernando County Fairgrounds, if you're familiar with that. And our Master Gardeners are there, and the nursery's open Wednesdays and Saturdays from 8 in the morning until noon, 8:30 in the morning until noon. Always check on Facebook. If for some reason the weather is really bad or incredibly cold, they may not open at all. They may open a little bit late. If it's that cold, you probably don't want to be tromping around the nursery anyway. So that will keep you updated on whether they're open that day or not. They have a great selection of native and Florida-friendly plants. And we have a ton of recorded classes. If you go on YouTube and look up Hernando County Government's YouTube page, they are all right on there. Great source of learning and information. And here is Colby's email address if you'd like to email him directly, or if you'd like to find out about what he has going on, you can go to his Linktree page, and everything you need is right there. So be sure to write that one down and keep it handy. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Bernie.
Watching Ag PhD the other night, and they were talking about the farmers use they call them naturals. They add microbes in their fertilizers so that they get a greater yield. And obviously microbes are deficient in a lot of Florida soils. And I was just wondering that they said that one of the problems is if you use city water in your mixed tank, that the chlorine kills the naturals, as they call it, and it doesn't give them the effect they're looking for. And I was just wondering if anybody had ever done any research on whether water with chlorine is less beneficial for lawns, for instance, than using either rainwater or well water. So, it's one of those things. Obviously, rainwater has a better pH, has more available nitrogen, has more, it's slightly acid and has no salts in it. But and of course, well water generally has a high pH in Florida and a lot of dissolved salts. So the question is, what kind of water works best for the lawn, and does using chlorinated water have some ill effect on lawns? Anything you know about that at all, Doctor?
I know that as a general rule, if you're using city water, it's obviously chlorinated to get rid of anything nasty and keep it healthy and safe. Um, it's not so chlorinated that it's really disrupting anything in the soil outdoors. It probably has at least a small effect on the biological activity in the soil, but not a major one. Because any kind of, whether you're using city water could be slightly problematic, all depending on exactly what it's made of. Basically, its pH, chlorine levels, everything else. Well water can be not completely perfect also, because a lot of our well water tends to have very high pH, because you drill a hole down the ground, you're going through limestone, and the water's sitting in a huge cavern surrounded by limestone. And what do we put on our lawns to make the pH go up? Lime. Same thing, ground limestone. So well water can be very alkaline. And I know that nurseries and farms and people who have used well water to irrigate with for like generations, it will over time push up the pH where it's a big problem. And they're going to have to, now things aren't growing quite right because of 100 years of using well water and raising that pH. So if people are worried about using city water to water their garden or lawn with, as a general rule, it's not a big problem. I use it for my vegetable garden. It's not a problem.
That's one place where, if you've got a rain barrel would obviously be the best form of water. And I've often wondered, is gray water treated with chlorine? Do you know, Colby?
Yeah. I'm almost certain. I think that they run chlorine through any of the water that comes out of the treatment plants.
Or is the county going to provide any more gray water, or is that program over?
Great. Is that reclaim?
Reclaimed water, yeah.
I think that the current plan long term may be to do another reclaim facility, but as of right now, they just have the one that goes to Timber Pines.
Okay.
I actually just visited that reclaim facility recently, and I'll say that water looks like it could make some plants grow at various stages.
So Alessandra has a question about, she could not find our events on Facebook. So here we are on our Facebook page, and you can see all of our posts. Hey, look at that. We're live. So if you go to the front page and you look under where it says more and click on it, you can go down to events and open that up. And the only event that we have on there right now is what we're doing right now today, the virtual plant clinic for December 5th. Later on today, I'll schedule it for next Thursday. But coming up, I'm going to start we have Arbor Day at our Master Gardener Nursery. We have classes coming up. You're going to start to see a lot more things coming up, a lot more activities and classes coming up for generally after New Year's. A little hard to get people to come out once we start to get too close to Christmas. Everybody's busy shopping and they're out of town, or they're dealing with people here in town. So a lot of what we have going on is going to be coming up after New Year's, but we got a lot planned, or at least I do.
No, yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, Bernie, the rain barrels. It's a great segue because we have a rain barrel workshop tomorrow. So if you are a Hernando County resident and you're interested in attending, you can go to that Linktree link that Dr. Letcher had up just a moment ago, or to any of my socials at Hernando FFL on Facebook and Instagram. You can go there and register for if you're a Hernando County resident, a free compost bin and a great price on a really good quality rain barrel. I also wanted to let everybody know. I mentioned in the past few weeks we have our water awareness speaker series. I don't have the paper that I can show right here easily, but those are on Eventbrite right now. So I think they're up for until April, and that's I know both Dr. Lester and Bernie will be speaking at on various dates. All that stuff's listed. So if you're interested, that's open to everybody. It's gonna be really interesting. Refreshers provided. A lot of really real deal expert speakers on a variety of topics concerning water and the like. So I just wanted to get that plug out real quick.
Yes, water is always a big topic. So, hey guys, if anybody has any last minute questions, we're doing pretty well time wise. It's 11:01, so we're not gonna go romping off too late here. If anybody has any last minute questions, please go ahead and put them in. Or if you're watching this as a recording, I showed my email earlier. Let me go ahead and show mine again real quick. Please feel free to shoot me an email, reach out if you want information about classes, you have a lawn and garden question. If you do send pictures, lots of pictures, a lot of times people's questions can be answered if you send, a clear explanation of what the issue is and a lot of pictures. A lot of times we can figure it out very easily just from that. I know sometimes people insist on calling, and it's really hard to verbally describe what is happening with a leaf or your lawn or something like that, where, you can explain it and I can understand it. What is that? A picture's worth 1,000 words. So save your words, email lots of pictures. And even if we can't figure it out from the pictures, I'll get back with you and we'll figure out what your problem is and get it answered for you. So,
yeah, one thing that don't forget on the pictures is send us an overall shot. So many times we get 19 detailed pictures of the leaf, but we don't get any overall view of what the plant is, and we don't get an overall view of what the plant's situation is. So the big picture along with the specific problem are both important, because a lot of times it's what you don't see in the little picture that's causing the problem in the little picture. So
exactly. And a lot of times people have sent one right off the top of my head. They had a problem with a small magnolia tree. It was just really thin and failing to thrive. It wasn't dead, but it wasn't doing really well. They sent pictures of leaves, pictures of trunk, branches, pictures of the whole overall tree. And it wasn't very 10, 15 feet tall, a small tree still. And it was in a little bed in their front yard with limestone rock piled up against the trunk. So magnolias don't like rocks.
no.
And as it turns out, I'm sure the homeowner never thought that could be the problem. But by sending a variety of pictures, we were able to see that and figure out that's probably your problem. If you get rid of the rocks, put down some kind of wood chip mulch, suggested a few other things, your tree will hopefully flush out and start to do a lot better. So guys, with that, thank you so much for joining us. We will be back here again next week. Let me see. I know that I'll be here. And hopefully we're going to have a guest. She will be here in 2 weeks. But yeah, we'll be back here next week. So please be sure to join us again with all your lawn and landscape questions and everything else. And you guys, as always, are very, very welcome. And have a great week. Keep warm. I think it's supposed to be a little bit warmer. At least no icy mornings would be nice. And enjoy the beautiful weather and enjoy getting ready for the holidays And be sure to join us again next Thursday. So we'll see you next Thursday, 10 a.m. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.